Hello and welcome back to the Cocoa Chronicles, unwrapping Ghana's cocoa industry. I'm your host, Logan. I'm a graduate student at the UB School of Architecture and Planning, and in this podcast mini-series, we explore the problem areas and points of contention within the Ghanaian cocoa industry. Today's episode will be the last episode of the mini-series, so thank you so much for anyone who has followed along. In this episode, we will explore the illegal mining activities occurring in Ghana on cocoa land and the implications it may have for not only the future of the Ghanaian cocoa industry, but for the world as well. I would like to do a specific shout out for today's episode and content to a documentary I watched on YouTube, released on the channel Magnet Film. The documentary is called Galamsey for a Fistful of Gold, documentary about the illegal gold business in Ghana, directed by Joanne Bruce. But per usual, all of the references for this episode's data and talking points will be listed on my website, everythinglogan.me, along with the episode's transcription. The music for this series was produced by Alex Productions, and for more information on the music, please head to the episode's transcript. So let's get into it. Mining has been practiced in Ghana for centuries, from the jewelry of the Ashanti kings to, of course, colonization within the country and across the continent. The best information I could provide you with to really illustrate how resource-rich the country is to tell you Ghana's nickname, the Gold Coast. This name was given to Ghana in the 15th century by Portuguese explorers. Like many countries within the Western region, Ghana is abundant in resources. And this was one of the many driving forces for why the British initially sought control over the Ashanti Kingdom. Today, the main resources that are mined within the country are gold, manganese, and bauxite being used to make aluminum metal, cement, and various other chemicals. Of these, the most notable is, of course, gold, which will be the main focus for the rest of this episode. Today, there are two main types of mining practices, one being more small-scale, called artisanal mining, and then there is industrial mining, which is much larger in scale and utilizes machinery for the extraction of raw materials. While industrial mining tends to occur in concentrated areas where workers dig deep into the ground, artisanal mining is much more spread out. Satellite imagery shows us that it occurs along rivers within Ghana, such as the River Pra. Because this work does not include heavy machinery, typically the plots of land being used for artisanal mining have many shallow holes scattered across the site. Now, both of these mining practices can be done legally, with the company or group of workers obtaining the necessary permit to operate, though many times when it comes to small-scale mining, these groups do not have the required documentation, which then of course makes their activities illegal. This small-scale illegal mining is regionally called galamsey, derived from the words gather and sell, and this will be the main focus for the rest of this podcast. In the early 2000s, China identified Ghana as an untapped resource and sent over workmen to conduct illegal and unregulated mining within the country, with the government of Ghana enacting measures to kick them out of the country by 2013. There was also a more recent ban from 2017 to 2018 on all artisanal small-scale mining in an effort to reduce foreign operations in Ghana, but the presence of the Chinese participation remains a major threat to the Ghanaian small-scale mining sector. In fact, while I was at the Cocoa Research Institute, I asked the executive director who exactly these miners were that were working on Ghanaian cocoa land, and he only had one word: Chinese. So the presence of Chinese mining operations is clearly ongoing. One research study from 2023 even stated that between the years of 2008 and 2016, over 50,000, quote, Chinese gold seekers migrated to rural Ghana to engage in illegal artisanal and small-scale mining, aided at various levels by local collaborators, end quote. Though, as I learned from the documentary, some Ghanaians were able to obtain some of the Chinese technology and infrastructure to mine with in the northern parts of the country. These tools include small boats or raft-like structures that work to help extract gold straight from the riverbed. And there's not just one way to conduct galamsey. Depending on the resources available, Galamsey can happen directly in the river, as I just mentioned, or it can happen on land, which entails digging relatively shallow holes, diverting the nearby river to help with mineral extraction, washing, and so on. Sometimes Galamsey is also done by digging deep underground, up to 2,000 feet, to extract the precious metal. Frequently coupled with this method of gold mining comes the use of dynamite. In a National Geographic article written by Marissa Schwartz Taylor and Kevin Taylor, a Galamsey worker named Boyke Andrews was quoted as saying, "The first day I went underground, I thought I wouldn't come out again." In the same article, the authors touch upon an accident that happened in 2010 in Dunkwa, where a single mining accident killed 150 workers. And in 2013, an article for the Northern Miner Group written by Cecilia Jasmine reported that over 300 illegal miners died in Ghana between 2011 and 2013. This really sends home the message that Galamsey is a risky and unsafe practice that poses a risk to not just the workers but the local community as well. Excluding climate change, illegal mining is the largest threat to the cocoa industry. From my research, I found that the cocoa land lost to illegal mining is about 2% of all cocoa farmland within the country. According to the Cocoa Board, between 2019 and 2020, 19,000 hectares, or 46,950 acres, of cocoa land was lost within 2 out of the 3 major cocoa producing regions in Ghana. In 2016 alone, fiscally, Ghana lost an estimated $2.3 billion because of Galamsey. This is according to a news article posted by the African Arguments. Galamsey poses a huge environmental risk for Ghanaians and their land. For example, a common practice when conducting Galamsey is to use mercury as a way to separate gold from the mud and soil of the river. When conducting Galamsey, mercury is dumped into the nearby water source. Mercury impacts the renal, nervous, and respiratory systems. Studies show that illegal mining within Ghana has directly impacted the health of its citizens. This includes increased rates of kidney disease. Polluting freshwater sources not only impacts human health directly through ingestion or contact, but also through the consumption of animals and plants that were exposed to this water source as well. For the agricultural sector, mining means the degradation of land and vital resources. If we recall back from episode 1, Harris Undo, a research scientist from the Science and Technology Policy Research Institute in Accra, stated that the cocoa sector contributes 3.5% of the nation's GDP, with agriculture as a whole contributing roughly 18.3% according to the FAO, with other data and research even showing up to 30%. With the agricultural sector employing the largest portion of the labor market, land is a huge asset for not just the country, but for individual families as well. Throughout my stay in Ghana, I learned that land and farming is closely intertwined with occupational legacy. Plots of land are handed down from generation to generation in order to provide, historically, a form of stable income and food source for the family. At the Cocoa Research Institute, we spoke about how children learn from their parents about agricultural practices and that farming is a job that is traditionally kept within families. With families and farmers deciding to sell off their land for a quick and sometimes substantial profit, this chain of stability is lost for those rurally located families. Once miners complete their search for gold and other natural resources, typically this land is no longer viable for agricultural use and is left looking similar to the moon, desolate and full of craters. I want to now turn to a recording of a conversation I had with a school teacher in Ghana named Genevieve. Our group took a 45-minute drive from the Accra city center to a rural school for children ages 5 to 10. Here I spoke with one of the teachers at the school to talk about the generational impact that farming has for rural communities and the implications that mining has on the sector. In the recording, you will hear school children playing in the background and the clucking of the school chickens and roosters that were running amongst our feet as we chatted in their community garden.
Mining.
Mining.
Illegal mining. People are now selling their farms, cocoa farms, for miners to go and mine because they think when someone takes, let's say, this part of this, the portion of this land, when the person digs and mine, the money the person will get will be what the cocoa will yield for 10 years. You are getting it a day.
Right.
So now they are selling their cocoa lands for mining, those who are mining.
And what are they mining for? What did you say?
They're mining gold.
Gold. Oh.
Ghana, we have gold here.
Oh, okay.
So under the ground, so those who are farming the cocoa, now they are now selling their lands for miners to mine and get money. A man said he farmed cocoa for more than 10 years. But when he sold just a portion of the cocoa farm for miners to mine, he was able to build with the money he had. He bought car. So you can imagine. But the scientists, they are not doing it, that this thing will not, when you are digging the hole, searching for the gold will not be there for long. But the cocoa tree will be there 100 years. Your great-grandchildren will come and partake. They'll also come and get what? More money from it.
Right.
But the mining, you get the gold and spend the money today, but your generation will not benefit. But the cocoa, the generation after I have finished using it, my children will also benefit. My great-grandchildren will benefit. And the country as a whole, Ghana, we export what? Cocoa, coffee, timber, and all those things. So we shouldn't look at just the immediate one that we'll get, but the future of the country and every individual. I get in it.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how the illicit activities surrounding cocoa and cocoa land will be remediated. In 2021, the Cocoa Board reported that they allocated $200 million for its farm rehabilitation, amongst other things, but did not go on to explain how this rehabilitation would come about. And while I tried to cover a great amount of complex issues within this mini-series, I really only captured the very basics of the issues. Humanitarian issues like this one are so complex and are a reflection of greater problems happening across the world. I really encourage you to go and watch the documentary I mentioned earlier, titled Galamsey for a Fistful of Gold. It is less than an hour long and is so impactful and informational. To see the physical demand that Galamsey requires and those that depend on the industry to make a living and provide for their families is something that, of course, an audio platform cannot do. Thank you all so much for listening and for following my research. I hope it was informative and has gotten you interested in learning more about the cocoa industry and what happens between planting the seed and eating your favorite chocolate and all of the outside influences on that process. And of course, I quickly need to thank all of my professors and staff at the University of Buffalo that helped make this project possible. I first need to thank my academic advisor, Mrs. Holly Cook. She has been with me for the past 2 years and has held my hand throughout all of graduate school, and I would not have graduated if it wasn't for her persistence and stamina. My supervisor, Dr. Lucy Lorian, thank you so much for your patience and guidance through formulating my ideas and helping me put together a tangible project from my trip abroad. And finally, Dr. Sia Asamoah, the woman in charge of the global programs at the UB School of Management. Thank you for volunteering your time towards my education and for showing me such kindness, even though I was an outsider from your department. And a special shout out to the All Africa Student Union for being our guides while we were in Ghana, and for showing us your culture and country. And to all of the businesses and organizations that donated their time to the UB team, the Cocoa Research Institute, Choco Love, Genevieve from Kapone Balawashi, and all of your students. Thank you all so much for listening.